So this session is going to be on the colony of Pennsylvania, which of course we already know is the most important of all of the colonies. So the colony of Pennsylvania was founded by a guy by the name of William Penn. And it was actually named Pennsylvania, which means Penn's Woods, because, like, let's face it, we've got a lot of woods around here. So how does William Penn end up with this huge, beautiful piece of land? Funny, so glad you asked. So William Penn, he comes from like a super rich family. His family, in fact, had so much money that when the King of England ran out of money, because he's always out like fighting the French and anybody else he can fight, the Penn family was like, hey, we got some extra cash. We'll just give it to you as a loan. So Penn's family obviously knew the king and obviously was wealthy and obviously then had some sort of position that made them important in this system that has nobility. So Penn, in the meantime, he was kind of like marching through his own beat. Penn was joining with a new group called the Society of Friends, but we know them as the Quakers. And these Quakers were a group of people that we would call pacifists. That means that they didn't believe in violence or war or fighting on behalf of any crown, that they were pretty devoted to just believing in God and following their religious faith. So then when Penn was told that it was his turn, that he needed to fight for the King of England, he was like, whoa, can't do it. I'm a Quaker and like we're the peace, love, and happiness people. We can't fight. And his father was mortified. So Penn was facing jail. Sure enough, his father thought he was embarrassing. The king can't believe that this trusted family lets their son get away with that. And oh, remember in England, you have to follow their religion. If you don't, you get persecuted. Remember we talked about like the Puritans and the separatists and the Pilgrims and all the other people who were persecuted, which is why they left. So anyway, sure enough, down the road, a lot of time passes by and Penn's dad kicks the bucket. And the king hadn't repaid the family yet. So now they owe the Penn family money. He basically says to William Penn, you're an embarrassment to our nation, to our military, to follow the Church of England. Here's the deal. I'm going to give you land in the New World. You and all your Quaker people get on a boat and get out of here. And Penn's like, cool, works for me. So he did. So Penn came and he starts this Penn's Wood. And they decide they're going to set up a totally different kind of society. In their society, everyone was equal. The men, the women, the children, didn't matter if you were Black, if you were white, if you were Native American and you wanted to live there. He didn't even care if you were Jewish. Like, religion didn't matter. So even like pink and green and sparkly unicorn people could have joined, and Penn would have been like, yay, come here. This is where we will all live in harmony. And everybody has a vote and say. They called it the Holy Experiment. So this Holy Experiment starts in a city that they decide they're going to call the City of Brotherly Love. We know it as Philadelphia. Philadelphia, totally different than any other place that you had ever been before. Here's what I could tell you about Philadelphia. So if you look at Philadelphia, wait, I'm on the wrong tab. This is William Penn. So William Penn, he starts Philadelphia. Philadelphia looks different than anything else. He was actually a pretty brilliant guy. He was able to engineer the city, so it looks kind of like graph paper from math class. It's a grid pattern. It was the first planned city that they actually decided like where the farms would go, where town would go, where businesses should go, the church, and so it was planned out. So Penn was able to start this holy experiment in this City of Brotherly Love, and he was able to come up with a great plan. And you're probably thinking, man, I'm pretty sure I've seen this guy somewhere before. Sort of. You've probably seen this. In fact, the Quaker Oats Company at first used to say, yeah, William Penn, this is his oatmeal. Because, you know, the Quaker people were all about truth and justice and equality and strength. And you would get that if you eat our oatmeal, until then one day the Penn family got kind of frustrated and felt like they were ripping them off. And trying to say that this was William Penn. They're like, oh no, sorry, that's not Penn. That's a different Quaker, and his name is Larry. That's right, this is Larry. So this is Billy, this is Larry. We don't mean to confuse you. So anyway, back to Billy and Penn. He starts a city of brotherly love. Everybody can live there. Everybody's peaceful and happy. And in fact, they're pretty amazing people. One of the things that we find out about the Quakers is not only do they think everybody was equal, but they're like one of the first groups to be abolitionists. We'll talk a lot about abolitionists this year. They're the people who believe in abolishing slavery. So they would actually smuggle people who were slaves out of the South and try to find them safe places to live in the North, or even go to Canada through what's called the Underground Railroad. One thing I want you to know, and we'll get into this later, it's not underground and it's not a railroad. It's really just a nickname for secret passageways. So back to William Penn. So William Penn is going to go ahead and have this peace, love, and happiness place, but he gets into some debates and disputes. First of all, his tract of land says that it's the same tract of land as the people who were given the Charter of Connecticut. Connecticut, remember we said Bradford County was originally part of that charter, was granted in 1662. William Penn gets his in 1681, and it kind of crosses the same boundary. Oh, and half of what would be New Jersey, and all of Delaware, and even part of Maryland. In fact, when we talk about Maryland, we'll talk about this more. There ends up being a big dispute over where Pennsylvania ends and where Maryland begins. And so they hired two guys, Mason and Dixon, who come up with a way to survey and say, like, this is your side and that's our side. So William Penn, biggest things to know about him is just that he comes here for religious freedom. His people come for religious freedom. He gets that land because his family is owed money. They're pacifists, and they definitely help with the Underground Railroad. We're going to look at your notes. Then you're going to see that after this, there's going to be a link in your Schoology to what's called the Pennsylvania Parody. Promise you, it will be the best 3 minutes and 11 seconds of your day. And it's from a guy by the name of Mr. Betts. And Mr. Betts does a much better job of explaining and reviewing all the cool stuff about Pennsylvania. And is, again, the most important of all the colonies. So if we're going to do our notes, remember that you want to go to your Google Classroom. And in there, you have your classwork tab. Classwork tab, again, sorts it by your chapters. So then you can go to your Chapter 3, Colonies, and find your Student Study Guide. On your Student Study Guide, we're going to be able to look at where we're at here, Pennsylvania, looking at our great colonies, and we're going to scroll down so we get to the part that's all about Pennsylvania. You could even fill in New Jersey, because the truth is, we're never going to talk about New Jersey again. Nobody talks about New Jersey. New Jersey was started also for religious freedom. Half of it belonged to Pennsylvania. They disputed over the line. That's really it. That's all you really need to know with New Jersey. Pennsylvania, again, William Penn, what do we know? Quaker. Father loaned some money to King Charles II. He refused to fight because he's a pacifist, gets kicked out, hits Penn's Woods, starts a city of brotherly love called Philly, and it was a planned city because he was a brilliant guy. Not to confuse William Penn again with Larry, the guy from the Quaker Oats Company. What do we know about the Quakers? They're pacifists, which just meant that they were all about peace. They also believed in equality for men, women, children, ethnicities, races, and they helped with the Underground Railroad. For you to keep in mind are these items that are on here. So I'm going to leave them up and give you a little bit of time to go ahead and take your notes. And then you're going to go and you're going to watch that Pennsylvania parody, which, again, best 3 minutes and 11 seconds of your entire day. Don't forget, you can be taking your notes by shoving this off to one side and having your blank ones on the other side. That'll give you an opportunity to see them at the same time. You can also pause the video and then come back and do that so that you have an opportunity to see it. You don't have to leave your video running. Same thing with down here, just a couple of things about your Quakers. Remembering that they're pacifists, believe in equality, and that they are part of the Underground Railroad that's not underground or railroad. Pause if you need more time, and when you're done, go and watch the parody, because again, it's really fabulous.